Alrighty, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newbury Zoning Board of Appeals. It is Thursday, December 19th, 2024. Time is 7:30. We're here at the Newbury Municipal Offices at 12 Kent Way. We have with us tonight, working the computer at the moment, is Chrissy Gilfrey, who's our administrative assistant. We have Larry Murphy, who is our liaison from the planning board. We have Jack Kelly, who's a member of the ZBA. We have Michelle Weidler, who's an associate member. And we have myself, Eric Spahn, the chair. Michelle is an associate member. We need 3 members to make a quorum, and so Michelle will be the voting member tonight. So, with that, Jack, you want to take the honor of the reading the first one?
Sure. Susan and Thomas Costigan, 337th Street. The applicants are requesting a special permit/finding for relief from section 97-4D5C01, increase in footprint of the Newbury zoning bylaws and any other permit relief as may be required under the town of Newbury zoning bylaws to allow the proposed use project for renovations to the existing dwelling, including decks, on the property located at 337th Street, Plum Island, Newbury, Mass. 01951, Assessor's Map U04, Lot 165. This is a continued public hearing from November 21st.
Thank you. Is the applicant here?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. For the record, Douglas DeShane from Finneran and Nicholson, representing Thomas and Susan Costigan, the owners of the property at 337. I did provide a PowerPoint presentation. However, in the event of a technical glitch, I also brought hard copies so that everyone would have one. No, that's our neighbor.
Oh, the neighbor. Oh, thank you. Okay.
I'm sorry, Doug.
No, that's quite all right. I'm no better at it. I do actually have 2 extra copies if somebody might want one. There you go. Well, thank you. Members of the board, good evening. As I said, Douglas DeShane from Finneran and Nicholson, representing Thomas and Susan Costigan. With me this evening, in addition to the Costigans, is Scott Brown, our architect, from Scott and Brown Architects, and the surveyor on the project is Tim Meehan, who was unable to be here this evening. I'm just going to read through this presentation, so again, I do have an extra copy if anyone wants it. My clients are seeking to construct a multi-story addition and deck to the existing single-family home at 337th Street. In doing so, the proposed construction will not add any new nonconformities, but will be changing the footprint of the structure and expanding into the existing front yard setback. There is no change to the height of the proposed structure. Our existing conditions, we do have a pre-existing non-conforming lot, although one of the larger lots that I've experienced out on Plum Island, it's just about 24,000 square feet in size. However, 40,000 is required, so we are pre-existing non-conforming. However, our frontage is more than conforming at over 264 feet. And we're not proposing any changes, obviously, to the area or the frontage. The structure itself is pre-existing non-conforming only as to the front setback from 37th, excuse me. We're currently at 2.8 feet, where the zoning bylaw requires 10 feet. So what we're proposing to do there will be no changes proposed to the existing lot. Will not create any new nonconformities. The new structure will result in an increased footprint and an extension into the pre-existing front yard, which is a non-conforming setback. The new structure will meet all other dimensional requirements, including setbacks, lot coverage, FAR, and again, height, because we're not proposing any changes to that. The next picture is just a picture of the, assessor's map. As you can see, 337th is a large parcel that's shown in yellow. Frontage is on 37th Street, where the second home back from Northern Boulevard. But then the property extends all the way to the beach and actually extends over to 39th Street as well. The next picture is an ortho photo, which I think gives you a better understanding of the size of the house. We've identified the house with that little location marker. You'll see, as I said, the house is close to 37th Street, but sets back considerably from the beach and also over to 39th Street. One thing I'd point out in this photo, and you'll see pictures again, but I think this is a nice aerial view, shows you the perspective of the homes around us. But please note the green tree line along the property abutting, which fronts on the 39th. So there's a rather a thick row of trees there. I will give you some closer pictures. The next slide shows the front of the, well, it actually shows the side of the house that faces Northern Boulevard. The next picture is actually the frontage, the front of the home. As you can see, that dirt gravel roadway which leads to the path, that is in fact 37th. And as you can see, the front porch, roof of the front door overhangs, and we're about 2.8 feet back, or 2.9 feet back from the actual roadway edge. The other picture shows you, the next picture shows you the left side of the home as it faces 39th Street. You can see there's an existing deck there, and we will be, that is where we are proposing most of the work. And then lastly, I took a picture from the beach, or not actually from the beach, but from the beach side of the home, looking back so that you can see the back of the home. And if you look to the right, again, that's that deck. In fact, that entire deck is where we're proposing to do the proposed work. The next picture is actually a picture of our neighbor who sits between this home, the Costigan's home, and Northern Boulevard. So they're the neighbor sort of directly behind us as you look to the ocean. The next photo starts to show you the two homes that abut us on 39th. That structure, that white structure in the middle, actually fronts on Northern Boulevard. It's a corner lot on Northern Boulevard and 39th. And then the next photo, you're looking now through that row of trees that I said exists between our property and the property that fronts on 39th Street. And that little blue marker that you can see is actually the edge of the newly proposed deck. I'll just take a break from the slides for a minute and just mention that my clients have already met with conservation. And in fact, they held a site walk this morning with the Conservation Commission. We invited our neighbors to attend, and I think it was a good opportunity for everyone to really see on the ground what is proposed. We had Mr. Meehan stake out the corners of the deck, so it was clear to everybody what was there. So again, a good opportunity, I think, for everybody to see things, and of course the Conservation Commission wanted to make sure that everything was in line with what was presented. So back to my slides. This is actually a picture looking from the back of the house down 37th. Obviously, from the pole there up is really just a walkway to the beach, but from that pole down past that red car that's sitting in the driveway, that is in fact 37th Street. And if you look to the left, that sort of a garage in questionable repair, that is property also owned by my clients, and that is sort of their direct abutter looking out their front door across 37th. The next picture is just now moving down 37th, away from the ocean. Again, in the background, you can see the garage from the previous picture, and then you're now starting to see the garage that's basically directly across from my client's home. And that next picture is actually a full view of the abutters to the south. And you can see in the background that there are a couple of larger structures which abut behind that garage and face our property. The Costigan property is north of these properties. And then that brings me full circle around the home. And this picture with the blue automobile is the neighbor directly behind us. And again, this neighbor fronts on Northern Boulevard and also on 37th. Also in this picture you can see the wooden walkways that are existing on the property. That allows you to come out the front door and essentially walk around to the driveway without having to walk on gravel. Last picture, and this is again another ortho photo, and what's important to note here is the Costigan home in the middle there with the tan roof. You can see the deck, existing deck, which comes out towards our neighbor on 39th. And then if you look to the left, that would be the view to the ocean. If you look directly over the Costigan home, south, you can see those two garages, which are our neighbors. And then lastly, coming around, you see to the right, the house that directly behind us, and the house that sort of sits on the corner of Northern and 39th. So I know I've shown you a lot of pictures, but I think it's important to be able to view really the context in which this home sits relative to our neighbors. We have a standard of showing you that what we're proposing is not going to be significantly detrimental to the neighborhood. And generally, while that neighborhood doesn't mean one individual, it means the whole grouping. So I wanted to make sure you saw the entire grouping so that we can talk about the impacts that this will have. In short, and I'm going to let Scott come up in a minute and just explain to you the proposed decks and living space that we're proposing to build. But again, what's important to note from this picture is the existing deck. It's sort of grayish in color. There's a set of stairs that come off facing the ocean, and then the wider part of the deck faces to the north towards 39th Street. So that's where we're proposing the work. And again, in short, the narrower deck that faces the ocean is going to be pushed out somewhat. However, the stairway is not going to be going out forward anymore. As we explained to the Conservation Commission, the stairway is actually going to be turned parallel with the deck. So in essence, the new deck will be farther away from the ocean than currently, and it's going to allow us to revegetate a lot of that sand area you see to the rear. The next photo is that of the site plan done by Mr. Meehan, and I'm sorry I don't have it larger, so you're pointing, but essentially this plan shows you the decks that are to be extended and the area to be made a two-story deck. So I'm sure, Mr. Brown was kind enough to provide me an overview plan that highlights things, so we don't have to dig into that site plan. And that's the plan that's proposed, site plan A-O. You can see that we have shown in green where we're adding on to the habitable space on the second floor level, which is currently an existing deck. So that habitable space is not part of the expanded footprint, but rather it's being done above the existing footprint, and that will face 37th Street. And while we're not going any closer than it's currently shown. We are going up with that. And then to the left, you can see it says new stairway to second floor, and then also new footprint at first floor deck level in existing deck location. So that would be facing our neighbor to the side that fronts on Northern Boulevard. And then we're proposing to expand the decks around the sides facing 39th and the ocean. So I guess with that, maybe Scott will just give me a couple minutes to walk through the architectural plans, just so the board understands, what we're doing in terms of expanding decks, putting some structures on decks.
So I'll do my best without quality large graphics in front of us, but sheet A0 is the one drawing where I've tried to sort of condense all the information that is actually in Tim's plan, so we can sort of all understand the scope of work for the project. This is one of the larger lots, probably the largest lot that I've worked on Plum Island, and Tim does a really excellent job putting a ton of information on his plan, but since it is so large, he had to decrease the scale of it, so it's very, very difficult, as Doug mentioned, to actually see what we're doing. So what Doug had mentioned, we've got like sort of two areas that are colored in green, that are the two spots where we're increasing the habitable space, and one of those spots is located on the driveway side in an existing deck location. And in the southeast corner is the second spot where we're actually expanding the habitable space, and that is also in an existing deck location. We are only doing that at the second floor level. We are expanding the deck on the northerly side of the house. We're expanding it to the north about 4 feet, 3 inches, and we're also expanding it towards the west about 8 feet. And we're doing that towards the west in order to create a second stair to that deck. That being said, we're still comfortably outside the setback requirements. And I believe the rear yard setback, what we're proposing is 16 feet, whereas 10 is allowed. Towards the east, or towards the dunes, we're doing a combination of a deck expansion and also removing some decks. And the removal of the extensions into the dune are what explains our change in sort of like the setback on that side of the house. While we're expanding in some areas, we're pulling back, and the net result is that we are further away from the dune. And on the street side, we are carving, which is the south side of the lot. We are removing a section of the deck, which explains why our front yard setback is going from 2.8 to 4.3. And also in our southwest corner, you can see in my site plan, I'm noting a new stair and a new covered roof. Right now, you access the second and third floor from the ground level, and we're proposing to move that front entry to the second floor level. So we're making a new stair for that. The next sheet, A1, these are our proposed floor plans. And what we're essentially doing here is explaining to the board how we've calculated our FAR. And unfortunately, I have not printed mine in color, but I think if I can remember this correctly, all of the blue areas, on the first, second, and third floors are, what counts against FAR. We have included all areas that are under solid cover, and in the lower left-hand corner of that plan shows what we have counted towards our proposed lot coverage. Our next sheet, A2, these are, our proposed, the next 4 slides, we have our existing elevation on the top, proposed elevation on the bottom. So A2 is showing, our project as we view it looking east, from the driveway. And you'll see on the left side here, these are our proposed deck extensions. And also immediately to the right of that, that is the area that we're expanding the habitable space, again, in the location of an existing deck. And in the lower right-hand corner there, you can see, the new entry door and, the switchback stair that we're providing in order to provide a new entry point to the second and third floor unit. We are planning to reskin the entire building. This is a location that takes a beating. The windows are actually in poor shape, so those will, be replaced as well as the siding. Our next sheet is A3, and these are this is our proposed south elevation on the bottom. This is how you would view the house from 337th Street looking north. On the lower left-hand corner, you can see our additions in the background, again in the location of of an existing porch, and off to the right you can see sort of our new deck configuration on the dune side, and where we're proposing to expand the second floor level that is only one story. In A4, this is the east elevation, again existing at the top, proposed at the bottom. Lower right-hand corner, you can see where our deck expansion is. And in the lower left-hand corner, again, that expansion of the habitable space on the second floor. And finally, coming full circle, we've got sheet A5. This is the north elevation of the house. Again, existing on the top, proposed on the bottom. It is important to note, like our second floor deck, or actually what a third floor deck, is going no further towards the ocean than the easterly side of the house. And again, in the lower right-hand corner, you can see, what our expansion looks like on the driveway side. And finally, you got, some existing photographs, nothing new here that Doug hasn't already talked about. And finally, our last sheet here is, basically showing the board how we've calculated the existing FAR and our lot coverage. And with that, I'll hand it back to Attorney DeShane. Thank you.
Yep, I just have a couple of quick statements, and then we're happy to answer any questions the board might have. Thank you, Scott, that was great. And again, this is my conclusory statement. The addition of a modest amount of living space and some new outdoor decks to the existing dwelling will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood and may actually provide some benefits to the neighborhood. While the proposed construction will result in a modest extension within the pre-existing front setback, that will have little or no impact to neighbors. We're not pushing it out any further, and we're not expanding on that non-conformity. The resulting structure creates no new conformities. One of the benefits of having one of the larger lots is you can meet lot coverage, FAR, setbacks. You have room to move, and my clients have nevertheless have made sure that we weren't creating any new non-conformities and that we meet all other dimensional requirements. This will undoubtedly result in an improved aesthetic of the property. The sort of tidying up the decks and the new siding and windows are really going to make this property far more aesthetically pleasing. And thus we would expect a property value increase, which not only will affect us but our neighbors. And of course, given our increase in value, it will mean increased tax revenue to the town. So, we've seen and observed a lot of these projects, and this one, in my opinion, is very modest in the sense that it's really just decks mostly, and that any interior living space we're adding is actually being developed within the existing footprint. So we're not expanding the footprint with living area or two-story structures, rather we're expanding the footprint with decks. And I do understand that while meeting FAR, we have considered where we have a deck over a deck to be a roof deck, and so we've included that FAR in the calculations and are still conforming. So with that, I would propose that this is not going to be significantly detrimental to the neighborhood in general, which is the standard we need to meet. We're happy to answer any questions the board or our neighbors might have, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. You guys have some questions?
I have just point of clarification. On the 37th Street side where we have the tight frontage,
Yep.
tight setback, where's that measured from? Is it measured from the foundation or is it measured from the little dog nose that we have there?
Okay, I would have to,
The small plan, it's hard to see.
I know, do you guys have the full size?
Oh, actually, I think I
I believe off the top of my head, I think that's to the corner board that cantilever.
Oh, I'm sorry, I may have misspoken.
Okay, very good. So that might actually be hanging over. Looks
No,
like it's more
it's
than
not.
2 feet.
20, it's 20 inches deep.
1 inches and we got 2 foot in. Okay, thank you.
It's actually a little more than 20 inches.
Yeah, what's the proposed material for the railings on the deck? I see the existing ones as sort of
It's
a
a
mix.
good question. So the existing ones are in really good shape, so it's our hope to kind of match what's there. And I think that it's a combination of like cedar and some iPay out there with a cable rail system.
Okay, so you're matching the one that's like along the beach side, right? Because some of these other ones have more of like a solid.
Yeah, so
Really?
that's the deck on the westerly side of the house that is going to be removed.
Yeah, so.
And any kind of other screening that you see like that, which I think is in a, you know, a kind of an unusual sort of pattern, very, very modern looking,
Yeah.
all of that is gonna be removed.
Okay, so you're matching the cable.
Yes.
The
Correct.
cable rail. Okay, thank you.
This is an existing two-family.
Yes.
It has one bedroom in the basement.
Yes, sir.
Ground floor, which is unit 1.
Yes.
And then upstairs, there are 3 bedrooms?
Yes.
Yep. And there's no increase in bedrooms?
No, sir.
And the height's not changing at all?
Not at all.
The frontage is not changing, the lot size isn't changing. And again, you've taken into account the decks for the lot coverage and the stairs.
Yes, and the FAR, to the extent they have a cover over them.
Is there any more? Does anybody having, anybody like to see any larger plans of this? Or is there an extra one of these floating around if you'd like to see that? So, this is new?
That's what was submitted to the Conservation Commission on Tuesday night, and the Conservation Commission mentioned that most of the issues raised on the decks in detrimental were for zoning. So I just wanted you to see it, they, butters asked that I submit it to zoning. So that's why I emailed it to the team.
So this is a
I think that's from.
submission.
Well, it's, as I understand, it was submitted by a neighbor
Yeah, that's fine.
at the CONSCOM meeting.
Okay,
And it was requested that I submit it to zoning.
Correct.
okay, so we've received this. Do we know who submitted this? Would you just state your name and address, please?
Allison Pike, 122 Northern Boulevard. I'm the neighbor to the west of the property on the boulevard side on 37th Street. So the early questions in those pages were mostly covered off in the conservation meeting and the walkthrough this morning. Some of the remaining concerns that I have as the abutter, so the extension on the driveway side of the home where the new stairwell and one of the bump outs will be, looks to be about a foot into the driveway. So one of the questions is, does that impact the parking at all? That's been an issue in the past at that location. So I just want to make sure that they have adequate parking for the building with that extension. And then the majority of it is towards the back of that document. You'll see the pictures from both my property as well as the other abutting property, and is with the decks. So the extension of that first story deck into the dune area, as well as the substantial increase in the second story deck and the change in placement of the second story deck, and how that impacts. From my property, the views from my property are completely blocked by that new second story deck request. From the other abutting property, it looks right into their bedrooms. That tree line is there, but it's not as substantial from that second story view as it is from standing on the ground. And you can see that from the neighbor's property. So you'll see it, pictures from the north with an overlay of the rendering, as well as pictures from the west, and current pictures and an overlay of the rendering. I will say architecturally, it's lovely, and I do think that that's a positive impact, but I wouldn't say that there's no impact to the neighbors or the value, certainly from my home, with the addition of that second and the change in placement of the second story deck. I think that will negatively impact the value of my home significantly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak against? If you would state your name and address, please.
Nancy Richards, 439th Street, Newbury, Mass. I grew up in 439th Street ever since I was 3 years old, and the neighborhood has been great. And I think the plans as far as squaring off the house, seeing the house develop from what it was originally to what it was now to the new plans, I think it's great. My concern is the size of the decks, especially the house being rented from time to time. The decks, especially that size, invite large parties and causes a major parking issue on the island. There, in the past, cars have been parked in the dunes. Cars have also been parked on 439th Street, blocking path to the beach. So that is my concern as far as, parking, it may not be right now, but what happens in the future if they, rent it more often. If once those decks are built, it invites large parties. As far as them improving their house, I am all for it. I think it's great, but the size of those decks just invites a lot of potentially large parties, which means large parking issues.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak?
Jim Flores, number 39, Street, number 5. What Nancy's saying also is the plans have 2 sets of stairs going on these 2 decks now. Is that what he was talking about earlier?
Yes. Well, it's 2-level decks. So
It's 2 level decks, but 2 new entrances. Does that mean this is going to be turned into a 3-family next, where it has separate entrances versus just going inside the property to get up there? And then is there gonna be additional lighting on all these decks that are gonna, light everything up?
So there is no 3-family allowed. It is a pre-existing 2-family. Understand your concerns. The way the plans appear is that the living spaces are on one level and the bedrooms are on the other. So it would seem unlikely that it would be turned into a 3-family, and that would be enforceable as to not happen by the building inspector.
Yeah, it just seems like there's more traffic going on outside with more noise versus the stairs going inside. I mean, I don't know, it didn't make a lot of sense why there'd be two sets of stairs going in from the outside. There must be some kind of reasoning for it. I wasn't quite exactly sure what it was, other than, do we rent out, something? I don't know. I mean, the first floor deck is wonderful. The idea of the second floor deck, I mean, that just seems a little crazy to me.
It is a lot of deck.
Yeah.
Owner-
Oh, it is a lot of deck. And then is there gonna be a lot of lighting that's gonna reflect, the properties next door and everybody? Along with the construction of the view, which everybody's gonna get with this thing being that high and that big? I mean, they got a pretty good sized deck there right now.
Understood. Appreciate your
Okay,
comments.
thank you.
Is there anybody else that'd like to speak against? Is there everybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor? None? So one of the questions that seems unanswered is the number of parking spaces.
Sure. And let me address that, and if I might, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to answer the questions that were asked by the neighbors. As you can see from the photo that was provided by the neighbor, actually, we currently have enough space between the home and the property line here that you can put 2 rows of cars. You can also see that that would be a minimum of 2 rows of 2. But in discussing it with Scott, as you can see from the picture, there is literally enough room that you could put 3 cars in a row if you wanted to, and still not encroach onto 37. So we have a minimum of 4 and potentially and reasonably 6 spaces. We're not expanding that front or the side of the home but a foot. And while it is, if that, Scott, right? So a reduction of 1 foot is not gonna impact our ability to park those 2 rows of cars in any event. I'd also like to just address the statement about the
Can I
deck.
have a point of clarification, Counselor? So in the drawing AO, the site plan that we're working off, the 4 to 6 cars are going in the area where it says drive?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, yes. What's that?
I mean, I've never seen 6 cars fit in there, but
Smart cars would.
small car.
4 cars.
Thank you.
Plus, depending on the size. And if I could, just with respect and to our neighbor's concern about the blocking of her view of the ocean. First of all, I want to say that all of the decks, all of the additions that we are proposing here are all within the required setbacks. So we're not pushing anything closer to anyone that's allowed under the law. I think as Scott said, that the side deck that's going to be pushed out is being pushed out about 4 feet. Still will leave us 16 feet to the neighbor's property, and those trees that are existing. Although someone standing on that second deck will have an expanded view, and I'll tell you one reason for putting a second-story deck on this home, if you've been there, while it fronts on the ocean, from the first floor, when you look towards the dune, you really can't see the water. Of course, on a second floor deck, you'll now be able to actually see the water. So there are reasons. And also with respect to impacts to our neighbors' views, this is the picture they submitted. And I just ask you to look at the fact that we're using cable, rail, thank you, lost that word for a moment. And, it's open between the 2 decks. Even the picture they provided represents the fact that you can still see through these decks. They're not gonna block the view entirely. I mean, you're gonna add a little more structure there, but not blocking it. And, as we know, as long as our decks are in the correct height, meet the building code, meet the setbacks, there's no law that prevents us from putting additional structure between the back neighbor and the ocean. It's just not one of those protected interests, nor is it an interest that's been determined by the courts to be a detriment to the neighborhood. I mean, we can all agree or disagree that this might have a slight impact on that particular neighbor's view, but it's not blocking it by any means, and it's certainly not rising to the level of significantly detrimental to the neighbors. I'm a little concerned, or I do question the statement that this deck is going to have an impact on anyone else's views, especially where our neighbor to the north, which fronts on 39th Street, has indicated it's going to affect their views. If you look at that picture I provided early in my presentation, the ortho photo from above, and you look at the sight lines from the rear of our abutting neighbor's home and even from the side, our deck is not in line with that. I mean, if you look out the side, it might impact, but their view is still this. Our impact is over here. They're as close to the ocean as we are. So I would suggest, while, it may have some minor impact on a view, it certainly doesn't rise to the level of a significantly detrimental impact to the neighborhood. It's just sort of a subjective determination. My clients have really tried to enlarge these decks in such a way that they would not be intrusive on anyone, and I think they've achieved that. Thank you.
Thank you. Have all the questions in this packet been answered?
I wasn't at the conservation meeting.
So I'd like to ask Allison.
They did answer the questions about the size of the deck and those questions that we had that weren't listed in the renderings that we received, yeah.
And the parking area is 48 feet long by 23.
Yeah, as long as, there's never been 6 cars in that parking lot. That's sometimes the problem when it's rented out. But as long as they still have the space with that expansion for the 2 rows of cars, that answers the parking question for me,
Yeah.
yes.
We went to look at the definition. I think we're at 8 by 18 as a parking space. So you would be able to get 4 cars in that area?
Yeah, as long as they're confident they can do that. That was the question, is does it impact
Okay.
it or not? And to respond, while the overlay of their own drawings, some of those railings will be see-through. The base that is see-through now won't be, the stairwells won't be, and the furniture and people won't be. So there is a big impact. That home, I've been in that home a number of times. I was very friendly with the previous owners. It has a spectacular view from the first floor and inside and on the first floor deck of the ocean. So that the need for the second floor deck, I agree. You'll have great views from up there. Who wouldn't? You'll also probably have great parties from up there. But it will change significantly the view from the property at 122 Northern Boulevard, and that will affect my home value. While that may not seem detrimental to everybody, it is detrimental to that property that is in a butter. And that's why I raised the concern about it. Thank you.
Our purview for the ZBA, it's good to know that you went to the Conservation Commission and that that process is moving forward, and they provide their own review, which we don't act on. As far as our status on Plum Island in terms of the PIOD is looking at proposed projects that are not more detrimental to the existing surrounding neighborhood, such that the size and scale or that building lines that are existing are not exacerbated. So in terms of meeting the PIOD, the height, the increase in lot coverage, the increase in FAR, in this case, there's no increase in height, there's no increase in bedrooms, although the size of the deck and the rental is something that we understand and take into concern, that's really not our purview in terms of control an assessment. If someone was adding extra bedrooms, then there would seem to be an increase in density, which is our concern. You know, parking, and if parking is an issue, then there are other entities in town in terms of the building department and or the police department that can handle those requests. If the space is there, then, and it's as shown on the plan, then that's what we take into consideration. So, and we don't have a quote design review, but we do take into account the largeness and excessiveness of what we perceive to be stretching the height and the solidness as to creating density as a weighing factor to the application and the proposed construction. And in here, is there anybody else at this time that would like to speak for or against?
Sure, I'm here as well. Since you're here.
Excuse me, I'm Tom Costigan. I own 337 with my wife Sue. We, just a little background, we're from New York. We have 6 children, 9 grandchildren. And I guess we will have a party once in a while with a lot of Costigans. I don't know what the history of the house is. We've stayed there many times. We've been vacationing in Plum Island since about 2000. Every year we've come up and came to love it, and that's why when the opportunity came up, we had rented this particular house several times, and the opportunity came up, we bought it. As regards to parking, I know the Costigans have had 6 cars in that lot. I mean, you have to squeeze in, but it's legit, it's 4 cars. If parking is a problem, just not to be confrontational, but 116 Northern Boulevard has no parking, and it was just built. So I'm not sure how that got through with no parking, but we have a legit area for 4 cars. We don't actively really rent the place, and our intention is not to do that. We're not doing Airbnb, we're not doing VRBO. There's a local guy, I'm not even sure what his name is, but he rents basically to the same people who've been renting it in July and August. And anyone else who's there is one of my family members. We could argue till the dawn about the use of your property. Everyone could say that you're going overboard, or why do you need this, why do you need that? It's our business how we try to use our house, or how we want to expand our house within the limits of the code. As far as the deck, honestly, we want a 2nd floor deck really to provide shade in the morning. That's one good reason. Second is it's fire access. We got 2 means of egress out of the 2nd floor, one interior, one exterior. As far as the multitude of stairs that are on it, you need to get from the 2nd floor. If you have to exit the house from the 2nd floor, you could exit off the deck, down to the 1st floor deck, and from the 1st floor deck down to the ground. If you didn't have the one down to the ground, you have to walk around the house, which is about 50 feet, 30 and 20. It's just makes sense to have multiple stairs coming out of there. As Doug pointed out, all the bedrooms are upstairs. So no big deal there. We're not making a 3-bedroom house out of it. As far as looking into someone's bedroom, if we're keeping Tom's full of cops, we're quite a bit far away from any other houses. So, and as far as views go, you know, you look across to, again, I'll bring up 116, and Doc Russo's house really got smashed when they put that house there. He lost all of his views as far as I'm concerned. Big white Lego house, we call it. We're not really doing that, and the decks that the railings are cable, you can see through them, and we're removing the bottom obstructive, I'm not sure what you call that. This is like a wraparound on the bottom to sort of hide or dress up the deck on the bottom. That's going away, as well as there were storage bins that are like plywood boxes on the northern side, and we're removing them, so it'll be like sort of open through there. And quite frankly, you can't see the ocean really from when you're sitting down on the first floor. So second floor seems like a logical place, and maybe you get a view of the sunset to boot. So just bringing that up since we're all here. And
Thank you.
that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Were there any other comments or questions from anybody? No? Any thoughts on comments?
The decks it seems like a lot of decks, so I understand the concern of a lot of people that could gather. I suppose that being said, though, people can gather on the ground too. You know, if it was just someone's yard, it could be the same. I don't necessarily quite agree with the double stair. I think, you know, that sort of encourages groups to congregate, you know, all outside on those decks. So again, I understand that concern. But as you said, Eric, you know, how people, in terms of our zoning bylaws, that this is allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Is there a motion to be had?
Can we make a motion to draft the decision? Is that what we're motion to? Okay.
Yep.
I will make a motion to draft a decision to permit the variance, to allow a variance for
Special permit.
special permit as requested by the applicants.
Okay. Is there a second?
Yep, I second.
Okay, and so to, you ready, Kristen?
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the special permit finding, the ZBA finds that the proposed additions are not more detrimental to the existing neighborhood as they are within the lot coverage, they are within the FAR, they were within the height, they were within the number of bedrooms, and none of the setbacks are exacerbated and are, and the three that are compliant remain compliant. So with that, is there a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the motion passes. We appreciate the neighbors' concerns, but the dimensional requirements that are within the bounds that, again, aren't exasperating the PIOD requirements, are favorable projects. So we appreciate your comments to this.
Mr. Chairman, when do you expect to, when's your next meeting?
Our next meeting is going to be,
January 16th.
it is going to be the week after that. I'm not here the 16th.
23rd, does that make it?
It makes it 23rd. We haven't decided, and if we have a continuance, then we have to, we would have to say, I think we're, I may not be here on the 23rd, which is the fourth Thursday of January, for business, so I don't know if the room is available. If we don't have a continuance that we're continuing to a time and a date specific, we are drafting a decision for review. If the decision is drafted and sent to us by email separately, we can review it. We could send text edits back to Chrissy to correct the record. If there's anything that needs to be added or adjusted, we would have to wait till the next meeting. And since the next meeting hasn't been scheduled, I'm a little hesitant right this second to schedule the next meeting.
Okay, well, I just asked in case I needed to be there. I wanted to check with my schedule, but we're happy to work with the board in any way you want, and you can let us know.
Out of town the week before. I'm hoping that we can figure out how to have it the week of the 20th, whether it be the 22nd or 23rd.
All right, thank you very
That's the
much.
target at the moment.
Are we closing the public hearing? Did we say that?
Um,
Leave it open. 'Cause that might determine, right?
True. I'm going to close the public hearing. I don't think we need any more information. We've heard a bunch of parties.
Yep.
So you can put that for the record, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and have a wonderful holiday. I'll see you next year. Take care. Thank you, Chrissy.
All right, yeah.
Next up, we have Gerald Fandetti, 11 and 15 Sunset Drive. The applicant is requesting a variance/reversal of administrative decision and a special permit finding for relief of the Newbury zoning bylaws, section 97-4D2B and 97-6B, regarding allowed uses and dimensional requirements. In order to correct the lot configuration, allowing for the creation of a legal, non-conforming lot to be redeveloped, in order to raise the pre-existing non-conforming dwelling, and for the construction of a new single-family dwelling with garage on pilings on the properties located at 11 and 15 Sunset Drive, Plum Island, Newbury, Mass. 01951, Assessors Map lots, Assessors Map U02, lots 78 and 80. And this is a continued public hearing from the November 21st, 2024 meeting. Supplemental material was requested on the neighborhood comparison.
So, as we left the last meeting, the question before us was a variance to reconfigure two lots and make two new different size lots. And the question of what was being put on the lot, although not discussed, our discussion, our thoughts were that the size of the lot then dictates what you can put on the lot. So although we're not reviewing what is proposed, we're solely focused on the ability to, or the reasoning of why a variance would be granted and what that variance would mean. And in our typical judging of the Plum Island properties within the PIOD, it is a judgment against the existing neighborhood. So we would like to know or understand that what you're proposing does not exacerbate in either too large or too small a lot for what is existing to what you're proposing to do, right? And with that, you can take it from there.
Okay, thank you, members of the board. When we were here for the last hearing, the board requested that we do an analysis of lot sizes in the neighborhood. So the first step was to say, okay, where is the neighborhood? And we just used the assessor maps as a method of determining our neighborhood. And there are 5 sections of assessor maps, U1 through 5 on Plum Island, and ours is predominantly in section U2. And so that's the area we use to define our neighborhood. When we looked at the lots on that section, they vary significantly. And if you look at the plan of the original 1923 subdivision, it shows pretty much a uniform character of the lots. They varied between 7,000 to 8,500 square feet, generally speaking. However, over time, the lot configurations have changed by mergers, streets not being built, changes in the law about how they get reconfigured. And so what we've ended up with is a wide variety of lot sizes. And our analysis shows that within 2,300 feet of our property, there are 19 lots over 20,000 square feet. Our proposed remerger of the lots wants to create one lot that is approximately 8,500 feet and the other lot about 2,300 feet, 23,000 square feet. And the reason to do that is to get street frontage, because the lots as currently configured, one lot, 11 Sunset, has street frontage, 15 Sunset has no street frontage, which is technically an illegal lot. So the reason we came to the board for a variance was to reconfigure the lots and make it a legal lot. So it turns out that the lots that are oversized, if you want to call it that, there are 19 lots within 2,300 feet of our site that are 20,000 feet or over. As a matter of fact, there's a lot within 100 feet of our site that's a very large lot of 41,000 square feet. So there's a wide range of different lot configurations in the neighborhood, so to speak. So that's what we tried to address through our analysis as requested by the board. So we feel that the reconfiguration or remerger of the lots is consistent with the neighborhood. It's not something that's unusual. It's not out of line. It sort of fits the pattern that is what Plum Island has become since the 1923 subdivision. And as I said, it's primarily because streets were not built, lots were merged because of family ownerships, and for a whole variety of reasons, the lot sizes have changed. And many of the lots that have single-level houses on them, and this is an interesting fact through our analysis, were lots that covered more than the required 20% of coverage. So you get all kinds of configurations and lot sizes with houses on it that don't meet regulations. You get there's a large variety of issues that occur on Plum Island because of the way the original lots were laid out and because the streets never got built, the mergers that occurred through many reasons. So that's why it seems to us that the lot reconfiguration is not out of line with the overall neighborhood and the overall pattern of lot reconfiguration on Plum Island. And that's our argument for reconfiguring the lots.
In terms of the application, the metrics, what is the lot area of 11, proposed lot area of 11?
8,500 square feet. And the house that is currently on that lot would meet all of the PIOD requirements. Yard setbacks, height, coverage, FAR.
What's the current square feet, Mr. Vendetti, on the left smaller lot?
The current square footage, I don't have that right in front of me, but I think it's 85 and 7, maybe 15,000 square feet.
17, right? 17,103 is
Yeah.
number 11.
Yeah, that sounds correct.
And then number 15 is 14,871.
Right.
What was that again, 11 is what existing?
11 is 17,103. and 11 is 14,871.
14.
871.
So is this the smaller lot currently, 14,871? Is that the larger? lot?
Yeah, number 15.
15 is the smaller.
Yeah, I mean, according to this, whatever
Yeah.
this map is.
Right, so
25,
the smaller lot's being made bigger and the bigger lot's being made smaller.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, just remind me, I know I wasn't here, but I did listen to the video recording, so
Yes.
I heard the whole meeting. The structure on 11 is to remain?
Yes.
That's the intent?
Yes, yes.
And there is you would be proposing to remove the deck or pull the deck back?
Yeah, we have already done that. The building inspector allowed us to reconfigure the deck. It was falling down, it was a hazard, and he said, sure, the repair is justified.
Okay. So we're, chapter 40, section 10 governs variances. So before we can get to any buildings, we're first have to talk about the lots and the lot size.
Yep.
In order to grant the variance, which I read this last time.
Soil shape and topography, is that what you're going for?
That's what I'm going for. So I'm just trying to, variance from terms of the applicable zoning ordinances, which are zoning ordinances, or bylaws where such permit granting authority specifically finds that owing to circumstances relating to the soil conditions, the shape, or the topography of such land or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures, but not affecting the general zoning district in which it is located. A little enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance, the bylaws would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So in terms of any variance that is granted, and we've granted very few because few have come before us, but they're always unique because of the site condition. The roadway, which is, what is it, Dartmouth Way? is not-
Dartmouth Way, yes.
Is not improved, it's not there.
It's not there.
It is up to these properties, but it's not connecting from Sunset back to Southern Boulevard, is that correct?
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
So
So it stops, what, like at Yale Way? here? Right
At
there?
Yale Way, yeah.
Yeah,
so that doesn't exist.
that doesn't exist.
At the moment. So that property is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the hardship is there's no access. Technically, there's no access unless you go over 11, property that belongs to 11.
And we had discussed that last time too, as opposed to granting an easement from one property on to the other, and whether that was beneficial or more detrimental. And it seemed like we're not favorable to encumbering one property to the other, unless it was somehow unique or existing. So, in terms of soil conditions, shape or topography, I mean, the conditions of the soil are, it's sandy and it's pretty consistent with the neighborhood. The topography, again, is consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. The shape, though, of the land for being set against an unimproved town way would be a hardship that the town way doesn't exist. So the thought could be that granting a variance due to the shape of the land, that the shape does not provide frontage and therefore is not accessible one could grant a variance to relieve that hardship.
The problem with that argument, in my opinion, is that we're almost creating a greater hardship with the splitting up of the two lots and making one tiny lot and one giant lot. We have two relatively equal lots right now. And I think there's three paths here. We have kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. There's the path that the town council laid out, which Mr. Vendetti is pursuing. That's one, we talked about that. A second path might be, and I can understand why Mr. Vendetti wouldn't do this, but it would solve the problem pretty simply. Lose one house, have one big giant lot with one big giant house. That would solve the problem also. And then I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss the easement thing. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The same owner holds both properties. He could grant an easement to himself, not to someone else. Grant an easement to himself if he chooses to sell one of the lots later. Well, then the easement goes with it, and we don't have to mess with the lot sizes or any of that stuff.
But it's technically an illegal lot. Chapter 48 doesn't,
We just gave you an easement. It's no longer illegal. How is it illegal? I don't
it
get
doesn't, it specifically, as I understand it, easements do not make a lot.
Easements provide
access.
but they don't make the lot legal, and they don't, then we have a pre-existing non-conforming structure on a lot that is technically illegal. So in terms of improving that, we've had
We could have a special permit for that, is that where you're going?
I think in sticking with the lot and what is being proposed in terms of the lot sizes, the applicant has shown us on a map properties that are approximately equal in size to the larger lot that's being created. So the argument would be is that I'm not creating anything any larger than other lots within the neighborhood that appear sporadically, but it's not like it's the only lot that's that big. It's not like there's one lot and this is the second lot, and that would seem to be more detrimental. The same could be said if you do the squint test and you look at the smaller lot at 8,000 square feet, and you look at the neighborhood, you can see a lot of other lots that are at that size or even less.
I was wondering, I looked at that also. I'm also, and speaking among the board, because there's only four of us and we're not allowed to talk about otherwise, I'm a little concerned about the definition of neighborhood. I'd hate to nail it down. Mr. Fandetti's definition is a half mile. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that's what he said, 2,500 feet or something.
Yeah, 2,300.
Yeah.
Well, what I used for neighborhood was the city assessor maps.
So-
There are 5 districts on Plum Island, and I just used the district that we were in.
Right, so my point would be, we have 3 distinct neighborhoods in this town, each with a different character. Old Town is different than Byfield, which is different than Plum Island. I wouldn't want to hem us into any one. I almost think 2,300 feet is kind of big for Plum Island. But it might be small for Byfield, but.
Yeah, but there's a lot 100 feet away, that's 41,000 square feet.
That would be the second one that the chairman just referenced.
Well, there are many,
In,
yeah.
But there's nothing built on that lot though, right?
Oh, there's a big,
Because-
there's a huge house on it.
but
in,
that has-
Go ahead.
yeah.
in terms of the PIOD, and town council has always said that with the PIOD, we have the ability to judge the, quote, neighborhood as it may appear itself for that property, that we are not limited, and neighborhood is not defined by 100 feet or 300 feet or 1,000 feet or an excessive map. It is defined by our opinion of what is adjacent and approximately what would make up a neighborhood. Now, that
I like
applies to Plum Island, but our ability to use that does not apply elsewhere in town to Old Town or to Byfield. Those do not have an overlay district as such as Plum Island with the same criteria for judgment. So the neighborhood here, and I didn't, last meeting, we didn't define what the neighborhood was. We asked Mr. Pandetti to give his assessment, make his argument, and show show the properties as he thought. Now, if there was only 2 large properties on Plum Island, he might have shown to trim the neighborhood down just to make his case that way, correct? Usually when we look at a neighborhood, it's on one side, it's on the beach side, it's on the opposite side, it's multiple houses in a row.
Right.
And so we're looking at several properties. All the properties are up against the road, all the properties are slightly overbuilt. Somebody is proposing to add to their property, and we're judging it against the neighbor. We are trying to protect the density of Plum Island, and we're also trying to provide the rights equally to everybody. And whether somebody builds something now, or whether there's an empty lot, the lots still have the same rights, whether there's an intent or not.
Right. I guess my thing is the unequalness of the lots. That's what we can't, we're not talking about any buildings yet, we're just talking lots, and I'm still a little hung up on that.
So, and I guess I'll sum it up I'm not trying to speak for you, but the smaller lot has an existing structure.
Correct.
That existing structure, as Mr. Benetti said and is on the drawings, meets the PIOD requirements. If that lot was existing today and we looked at that structure and they wanted to add a second floor to it, and we went through what we typically do, and we'd say, okay, it has frontage, but it's pre-existing non-conforming. It has a lot size that's pre-existing non-conforming. It has the setbacks that are conforming. Its height will be conforming. Its lot coverage will be conforming. The FAR may be pushing because he's adding a second floor, but that's how we would judge that piece of property. And in some cases, it's no better or no worse than I don't know, than 80% of the properties that exist within this general area.
As the 17,000 or as the 8,500?
As the 8,500.
Okay.
I mean, you
All
could
right.
go 2 lots away, and there's a lot that would be equal in size to 7,000. Can't quite read that one. So, is the too small? It would seem not. Is the too big? There are several, and there's a couple that are actually quite close to each other. So, you know, if the larger lots wanted to push to do something larger, and you're comparing it to the adjacent larger lots, and it's in keeping, then it's not in keeping with the small lot next to it, but it is in keeping with the other large lots. And this, our understanding that a smaller lot that has a house that is pre-existing, that would become pre-existing non-conforming, let's say. And then there's a new lot, which eventually, if a variance was granted and the plan was submitted to the planning board accepted it, then the applicant would come back with a proposed house on that new larger lot. And so at this point, although we're not judging the house design or area or anything of that, we are judging the ability to put a house that would meet the intent of the PIOD on a larger lot created from a smaller lot. So, and the ability to grant the variance, again, with section 10, in terms of soil conditions, shape, and topography, the shape of the land against an unimproved right-of-way, it doesn't allow it to be built upon. And in essence, what happens is what town council's letter outlined in terms of the steps is that these properties would, if a variance was granted, these 2 new properties would lose all pre-existing non-conforming rights. But we, with the variance, would then be setting a set of new conditions for that property. Did I say that right, Larry? Close enough, sort of.
It's odd on, it's clear on the new house, the old house, it's a
Yeah, the
little,
one that remains.
yeah, it's a little muddy.
But so I think the argument is that if the old house on the smaller lot meets the intent of the PIOD, doesn't exacerbate what we would consider requirements like setback or FAR or height. And its new status is that it's a small lot and it's got a non-conforming, I mean, if it meets the frontage, then the only thing, it will have a non-conforming frontage and it will have a non-conforming lot size. That's the new non-conformities that we would be putting on that lot. And the larger lot would have a variance. It would gain some frontage, but it would be non-conforming. And the lot size obviously would be non-conforming. And then whatever was supposedly presented would have to be non-exacerbating PIOD conditions. So in a sense, the existing home on the smaller lot and whatever is proposed for the new would be in keeping and not more detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood or the size of what is on the lot, whether it's existing or new, again, compared to the surrounding neighborhood.
Understood. Somebody want to make a motion?
So, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak against the project? You'd state your name and address, please.
Donna Finnegan, 6 Brimwell Way. A comment is not a criticism, but it's a comment on the little house, on the little property. And also the fact that it is a neighborhood and there are many variations, but that's what makes that whole area unique. But going back to the little property, I look down on it from my house, which is behind. And I don't know how anybody who would buy that house would enjoy the outside. What you have on one side where you're getting all that frontage, one side is driveway. You can't go out there and do anything. On the front side, on Sunset, you can't do anything there. It's all beach grass, and it's not level. And in taking down the deck, which was the play space for that house, my husband was one of those that built it. It has been chopped back so far, you can hardly get chairs and a table out there now. And I don't see how people who buy that house, as I said, are going to be able to enjoy the outside of that house. It has made it so small.
Thank you. Has the deck been rebuilt or has the deck just been removed?
No, it's been rebuilt. It was in very poor condition, as a matter of fact, was structurally unsafe.
Is it pulled back to be within 10 feet of the property line?
Yes, it has. Yes.
So you got like an emergency, whatever, from the.
Yeah,
from
second means
building
of
department.
egress, yes. And it's actually about 12 feet on one side, 7 on the other. It's a reasonable sized deck. It's not, and it's very safe. It has railings around it where the other deck didn't have any railings. It meets code in all aspects.
Where's the parking on that?
Right in front, it comes off Benoit. There's a circular drive. There's the park, yeah. Right.
In the corner. So to be clear, the deck, the new deck is not 10 feet from, it's 10 feet from your proposed internal lot line.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
From the new division.
From the new subdivision, yes.
Thank you.
This is the new one, right, this one. That's the proposed new one?
Yeah, that's the proposed one.
Right.
Mhm. So, this is more just a question, I guess, not really a comment, but a question. Why, the property that has access already, that's off Bryn Mawr, why not improve that property? Why are we making the one that has no access bigger and the one that has access smaller versus the other way around? Why not work with where you already have access?
Well, the house that's on 15 straddles the property line. So in any event, that house would have to be dealt with in some way. And it seemed to me that's the easiest way to deal with it. And plus, the property on 15 is in far worse condition than the property on 11. It's in it's in serious disrepair. So for those two reasons, it made sense to keep the property at 11 and make small improvements in it so it would stand alone as its own property and improve the site of 15 because the house straddles the property line currently and is in serious disrepair. So that's why we did it the way we did.
In placing that new property line, I think the intent, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but was to make a smaller lot that was somewhat consistently non-conforming to other lots, and make a larger lot that gives you the frontage.
Yes.
And the larger lot also, even though we're not looking at it, is probably sized in order to try to fit what you're proposing to do on there.
We're trying to, the whole reason for this exercise is to build a one-level house. And the reason we need a one-level house is my wife has serious mobility issues. And it is very important for us to have a house that is one level. And she suffers from the consequences of her life as a dependent of a Marine Corps veteran.
And I understand that and appreciate that, and the desire to build one story. I think a one-story house can be many different sizes. You know, the footprint of a one-story house can be smaller, can be big, can be, right? So I absolutely understand, you know, needing a one-story dwelling. I guess what I worry about a little bit is this is setting a precedent for other people being able to buy two properties, you know, next to each other in the future, and also then moving the property lines, and you know, now down the block, this happens again, and we have a large lot and a smaller lot. And, you know, congratulations to you for getting two together at the same time and being able to buy two right next to each other. But, you know, is it setting a precedent for...
So the variance, again, if you buy two lots and they have houses and they have access, what is the hardship that someone would
would need a variance?
Can I just make an observation without, I respect what they're trying to do and wish these folks the very best, but I don't want to see it just derailed somewhere down the road. If this comes before the planning board on an A&R, which would be the next step.
Yep.
What I would be looking for are two variances, one associated with number 15 and one associated with number 11. Because you've got to find some hardship that justifies the reduction in size in an already non-conforming lot. If you look at Peter Burnett's letter, he talks about variances in the plural. He doesn't talk about a single variance. So just granting a variance to 15 is going to be a problem.
But understood.
Okay.
And I have words or thoughts to that. And I think that was clear in Lisa's or town council's memo in terms of outlining the path. And I think we did ask about the neighborhood, about the two lot sizes. You've clearly identified the larger, you haven't identified the smaller. The shape of the land of number 15 in terms of not having an improved public way would go with the shape of the land. The creation or a variance for 11 to make it smaller and the fact that you're not improving the structure then gives it a little bit of pause as to what the conditions of the soil or the topography are that allow that. And I've taken the stance that it's the lot itself with the nonconformities are somewhat comparable to the adjacent neighbors, but haven't addressed that part of the variance.
Okay, but I just didn't want to, find us, my sense was that the board was considering a single variance to cover both, associated with number 15.
Well, that would address some of my concerns about making it so small, because it's kind of, irritating, but as far as I'm concerned, the 1920 lot lines are completely irrelevant. They're no more relevant than the original King's Grant, which made it all new. It's ancient history, it doesn't matter. Why does it have to be so small, and still give you frontage? Is that the absolute minimum that we can get the frontage on? So that's where the two variance thing might, just throwing it out there.
And again, talking about the neighborhood and the size and sort of justifying an existing structure that's not any more detrimental than others existing, but we don't really quite have the sentence that applies to the section 10 of the zoning in order to grant a variance. You don't have frontage on 15, that's the shape of the land, and 11.
Double frontage, really.
Right, but we're talking about a variance, we're talking about soil conditions. So what are the soil conditions that are unique to that property? What is the shape of the land that's unique to that property? What is the topography that's unique to that property? So, and if we don't have that reasoning in putting that in the variances, or one variance that has two parts, however you're going to say it, then it would seem suspect or challengeable. I think you have a strong case for 15 in terms of the lack of frontage, saying that the shape of the land with an unimproved way.
I don't necessarily agree, because this is a way of satisfying the issues that were created by the doctrine of merger. We did the original lots were all had an intention of being individual lots. They never materialized that way. Then came along the doctrine of merger, where of the 4 lots, 2 were merged. They could have easily have merged 3 out of the 4 to 1 lot, which would have made the most sense, because of the house on 15 straddles the lot lines. So there was a major error made in that regard. So you have a situation where at some point, somebody, the town, some official, somebody made an error. That is the hardship, right there. That doctrine of merger, where the lots were merged incorrectly at some point in the past. Now we have a situation where we're all trying to figure out how to correct it. It's a difficult situation, because these lots were merged incorrectly. There's a house that's on 2 lots after they were merged. How does that happen? And it had no frontage. Why would somebody merge lots to create that configuration? I mean, who would do that?
But that's not one of, the doctrine, whatever it is not one of our 3 causes that we're allowed to give a variance.
I'm talking about the error that's the hardship. That's the hardship. There was an error made at some point, and we're trying to correct it.
Well, you're assuming that both of these lots, all 4 of those existing lots, were all in common ownership when merger applied. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, I don't know.
I don't know either.
Your beef is with the assessors, if you have a beef.
Well, how do you correct the problem?
I mean,
And now you're saying, well, we shouldn't do any variances because one lot has a variance,
No,
a
all
true variance,
I'm
and
saying is
one
if
doesn't.
If it comes before the planning board on an A&R, we'd be looking for 2 variances. You issue the variances, the appeal period runs, that's the law for these lots.
So that, it's these 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Yes. Those were the original lots back in 1923. And at some point, they were merged, 2 and 2. That created the problem.
So 15 has 30 feet of frontage right now.
15 has no frontage. I mean, 15, I'm sorry. Yeah, 15 has no frontage.
But so 15, so these 2 lots these were merged here. And then this lot was merged with this one.
Yes, so there's 3, yeah.
So there's 1, 2 now. Where there were 4.
I mean, makes no sense, I agree.
Right.
But yeah, I don't see why that's relevant to our conversation right now.
I don't see it at all.
I mean, we have to work with where we are today. I mean, there's a million lot lines and what has happened in the whole town and all of New England over years and years, right? I don't see why that's relevant, I guess, for our conversation today.
So if the lot line was put back to where it was originally, that gives 30 feet of frontage to 15 and makes 11.
You mean this one
bigger.
right here? That one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, the shape of the land of 15, as it is located, is a hardship. The variance for 11 is
Well, it does have steep topography there. I mean, we could make that argument, but,
so it has steep topography, then the only place you could build a house is where it currently exists. So,
You're talking about number 11?
yep.
Yep.
So owing to the shape of the topography, the variance is granted as if it was a lot and the existing structure would be built. It's the only place it could be built in. So it's kind of reverse thinking. I don't even know if it's appropriate thinking, but.
I don't even know, can we make that argument? Is it contours? Do we have contours that I'm missing or something?
No, they're on here.
No, this one.
This one's in, is this second?
You want to see this one?
So we have from 12.9 down to 4 feet.
Yeah,
Jeez, I don't see it.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know if I'd call that steep.
2 feet over most of the
Over
lot.
here, yes, here, I mean, that's not a steep slope here, yes.
Yeah. Sorry, we don't have a quick decision, but this is atypical and so unique that,
Exactly.
and we, again, we don't have any chance to have any side discussions that help us form a thought unless we're doing it in front of you. So we seem to be mumbling through it a little bit.
That's fine.
We're trying to figure it out.
I appreciate your time.
I took 2 pages of notes and left them at home, so there you go, Mr. Convey.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I laid out a possible variance for 15 with the shape of the land, and through some reverse thinking, it's topographies if you're going up from 8 to 12, that's 4 feet. It's the fact that you can't build on a dune or a slope.
Well, yeah, if you were building new, you'd be up anyways, or you'd be down on piers.
True.
So the grade below is sort of like most of our other sites, right, where it changes below when you take the mean average, but
Is this in a flood zone?
I don't know, do you know if it's in a flood zone?
I think a portion of the lot is, yes.
It is, yeah. You probably know if you have flood insurance or not
Yes.
on the property.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a, right, I think there's, I don't know if we don't have consensus on a variance for both. A variance for each one. Do you think a variance could be granted for 15 for the shape of the land?
The shape as it's proposed?
Yes. Well, the variance to move the lot line because of the shape of the land, it doesn't have frontage because of the unimproved development plan. That's question one.
Sounds like he has a better argument for 15 than he does for 11.
Well, that's what I'm stating, Jack, is that I'm trying to say that, okay, let's just take this one at a time. We talk about lot 15 and the fact that it doesn't have any frontage and the fact that Dartmouth Way isn't improved. Is the shape of the land a hardship that granting a variance to move the property line would ease that hardship and give frontage on that lot?
Understood, but won't that tie his hands?
So
If we have to change something,
So just focus on 15.
Okay.
Is that a yes? I would say it's a yes.
Okay, I agree.
For where this line is, just looking at 15,
Just.
is, just at 15, do we need this much for frontage? I don't know what that dimension is.
Let's take the premise that lot 15, the shape of the land
Has it?
is a hardship, and that moving the lot line and providing frontage on Sunset Drive would relieve that hardship, and therefore variance could be granted for 15. Yes.
So our only reason with the shape is that there's no frontage, that's why, that's our beef.
Correct. And that's the shape of the lot as it's the shape of the lot. Okay, so you say yes to that. Then you get over to 11, and you're looking for a variance that deals with, again, the soil condition, the shape of the land, or the topography.
I'm not finding that one as one.
And so what,
I don't know, Jack, what do you?
Yeah, no, I agree, I mean, it seems like it it still seems to me like the new lot line is kind of arbitrarily placed to go along with a historical, 1920 lot. I mean, is it, I think what Michelle was starting to say earlier, and I kind of feel the same way, if you tweak it a little, isn't there enough room to, what's the front, to get some frontage on there?
You could have 2 feet and say that there's non-conforming frontage if there's 2 feet of frontage.
Well, I mean, driveway width,
So the intent for, which is the next step, the intent is for the house design that is designed for 15, and the way you need to access that house in terms of grading is what dictated putting the proposed lot line where it is.
That's not what he said. He said it was, he used the 1921 things.
No, his argument was that somebody made mistakes in doctrine emerging in the past, and he's trying to correct that. And so where this all, the direction this took last meeting was to understand that 2 new lots are proposed, and that the 2 lots have different sizes. And the fact that you're making a larger lot and you're making a smaller lot, the understanding was, are those lot sizes any different than the neighborhood? Is the big lot too big? And if the big lot is too big or proved to be too big, which I think it proved that it's within keeping in terms of size of the neighborhood, then a larger structure could be put on it. And then the question was, is the smaller lot too small? So I think in terms of what we asked, in terms of proving out the size of the lot in the neighborhood, it is proved out on the plan here, and the lots and the sizes are identified. That being said, we understand that if this was approved, then the lot size, the larger lot size being somewhat equal to other lots in the neighborhood, would then afford or grant or provide the rights to build a certain sized house on that larger lot that would then be in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood. So we haven't created a lot, and then Mr. Fandetti comes back next month and we say, oh no, that's way too big a house. And it's like, well, it's the lot. Here's the dynamics of the dimensional criteria of the lot. So without looking at the house or understanding the house, we are in part thinking that is the lot too big or too small was the question, and that to me has been proved out on the plan. So the lot size to me is an issue, either the too small a lot or the too big a lot. Now we step back, and if someone was to draft the variance, you would have to come up with the means in section 10 that state the reasoning for the hardship in the condition of the land is what? And the condition of 15 is that the shape of the land does not afford it any frontage, and so it's an unbuildable lot, or it has a pre-existing non-conformity that doesn't even conform. It's not even non-conforming, it just doesn't conform. So by providing a variance, you would allow lot 15 some condition, which again would be equal to the neighborhood of Plum Island for the oddities, the non-conformities that other properties have. This would have similar ones. So you could relieve the hardship by granting 15. Now, the second variance, in terms of 11 being a smaller lot, being an existing house, the hardship is what? And
I don't think that's for us to claim what the hardship is on that one, right? I mean,
Should the applicant be submitting something for us?
what's the claimed hardship for 11?
Well, I mean, I think we're all trying to figure this out, and if we're reasoning it for or against or coming up with it, then we're not trying to make your argument for you, but we're trying to reason out and figure it out. And so then, to me, the question of where the lot line is, whether the lot line is moved, and and makes the 15 a little smaller and makes 11 a little bigger is a nice to have, but again, does it meet the conditions of providing a variance for it?
I think I still don't know what the hardship is. I understand what you're saying about where the lot line is. That still doesn't necessarily create a hardship for 11.
Correct, moving the lot line, it
Even though
makes,
somehow it makes 15 feel better, but, you know, to even them out more somehow feels better, but that's more of a, that's not a technical thought related to our criteria we're measuring these variances against.
Mr. Kennedy, can you think of anything in terms of the soil, the shape of the land, the
Well, the
conditions of the topography?
portion of the roadway, Bremoire goes over some of the property. And then there's the topography, and then there's the I mean, those are the soil conditions are similar throughout Plum Island. So we're not talking about soil conditions, but we are talking about the need for hardship. I mean, I'm not sure, I don't understand why you need a hardship or a variance for a lot 11. I don't understand that. I mean, he's saying that the planning board's gonna look at that you need 2 variances. Well,
Because
you can't subdivide or remove a piece of land from another piece of land?
when you do, you reset the status of both pieces of property.
Right.
And you have 2 pieces of property, so nobody's arguing 2 pieces of property, we're just arguing the status of the property, and if you had 2 really large lots and you wanted to move the lot line and both of them met the zoning requirements, we wouldn't have any issue, your engineer would draft the plan, you'd send it to the planning board, they'd look at it, and they'd say, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
But what we're giving a variance, in essence, against the soil conditions, is that we're resetting the nonconformities of the lot. And we're trying to justify how,
The non-conformities meaning they don't comply with the PIOD or the frontage and lot size requirements of the zoning generally in the area? What is the non-conformity we're talking about?
the frontage and lot size for 11.
So let's say, an example would be, say the variance for both is approved,
Right,
and then you go and you sell number 11.
right.
The person who owns that now essentially can't really improve their property.
They can,
They can, but only within,
right, but if it meets, so. if
It meets zoning because it
Yeah, if it
That's what I don't
has the
understand.
setbacks of
Yeah.
10 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, it has parking, it has a lot coverage, it has an FAR. If all that is in keeping with the PIOD, then the house could be increased upward if it met all that. And some people would come and they'd say, look, my lot coverage is under, but my FAR is a little over, and I'm equal to look at my neighbors, he's got a lot, he's 5 feet and 5 feet, and so I'm actually way better off than this guy, so why can't I do that? That's the argument that's made to us all the time.
yeah.
So the hangup here is stating a hardship that meets the intent of, the zoning, the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 10 on zoning, that would stand up. And I think we've been through why and how this, what is being proposed was, how it was all thought through and why it's being proposed like this. And again, trying to separate the properties, I think we're in agreement that we could find a variance, a plausible variance for 15 due to the current shape of the land as it sits in the neighborhood. And then we get to 11. And so now we're discussing that.
So would it be appropriate to propose a motion to approve in theory, the variance for 15, subject to a plan for 11, and then the applicant come back and propose something that he thinks will fly in 11.
Well, I don't think we can do one without the other, because one creates the other. And you can't have something that's approved and then have something that we put in limbo. That's not what we want to do, and we want.
Okay, all right. Maybe you can just come back in with a plan for both. Would that be easier, or do you want to try to hash it out right now?
It's all right here. You can move, you can ask to move the property line and make 15 a little smaller, but it still doesn't, the question is, what is the hardship for 11? If 11 meets basically the typical nonconformities of a Plum Island lot, and it's equal to a lot of its neighbors, and it's no more detrimental to its neighbors. If we were just talking about, if this was done, a done deal, and 11 came back to us with a second floor, in all likelihood, we'd probably pass it, because it meets most of the conditions of the PIOD, and it doesn't exacerbate conditions of the PIOD. And so it's, I don't know, it's just like some of the other applications we had before us. But
That's not what we're reviewing.
what we're trying to get is to a variance of section 10 and standing behind it that allows this to happen. And as much as 15 seems to be totally in order for a variance, then, are we, I don't, is the hardship of
Hardship could be that its lot size has been diminished by 15.
By the applicant.
By 15, by the variance on 15. That's the hardship.
It's like,
Try to be creative about it, that's one way of looking at it.
it's like murdering your parents and throwing yourself on the mercy of the court because you're an orphan.
So, again, it's back to this, authority specifically finds that owing to circumstances relating to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of such land or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures but not affecting the general zoning district, we can't do a variance for use.
And it does look like Peter's a little ahead of this. He did specifically say it creates new substandard lots and they'd lose their pre-existing non-conforming.
And that's as discussed with town council. So again, that's the whole point, is that we are taking two non-conforming properties, we are changing the size, and we are resetting the allowable non-conformities because of a variance, which we have the ability to do.
You're making 15 more conforming and 11 less conforming, and that's the problem. The underlying zoning, PIOD is an overlay district. It's still subject to the underlying zoning, which is the agricultural residential, which requires a 40,000 square foot lot. That's the problem.
If there was a condition of the land that could make that argument, then the smaller lot could find itself a variance.
If you find one, we'll be happy to take it. You
You
know what I'm saying? Again,
No, I
I'm
do.
not trying to advocate one way or the other. I just don't want to see you get to the planning board and get shot down because, of a technical glitch at this stage. And maybe you want to continue, if I can offer, maybe you want to continue this and talk to the building inspector about it. I'm giving you my opinion, my thought as a member of the planning board. But
Now, when you said that the Plum Island Overlay District, PIOD, goes over the AR, RA zoning,
yeah,
what takes precedence?
yeah, okay. It does, what the overlay district doesn't relieve you of any of the requirements of the underlying zoning district. it puts on special requirements that you wouldn't have otherwise in other areas in town subject to the.
But why is not Plum Island its own zoning district? I mean, AR doesn't fit Plum Island at all.
I wouldn't
Why,
disagree.
why is it the way it?
You're gonna have to take that to town meeting. to
Yeah,
change it.
okay.
You know, I mean, I'm not being flip, I just,
I know, I
that's the
understand.
reality.
Yeah.
And that's a hardship out there, there's no question.
There's the hardship right there.
Well, maybe,
We had zoning inconsistencies.
yeah, it makes it very difficult,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the permit granting authority may impose conditions, safeguards, and limitations both of time and use, including the condition, continued existence of any particular structures, but excluding any conditions, safeguards, or limitations based on the continued ownership. So people making statements that their other one's gonna live there. You know, that's the reason for the variance, doesn't hold. I mean, I think we always want to be helpful and we want to help residents do what they want to do. We just want to make sure that we're always weighing against giving one property owner rights that we couldn't give somebody else. And then giving somebody, a property owner, rights, even though we grant you the special permit and you build it, if it is deemed non-conforming in the future, and then you can't sell your property because we granted you something that you know, we're taking exception to that, and we're not, you know, so we're trying to prevent that. And I guess the basics of building codes and zoning is to make things as equal as possible and not let people do something that is a great idea but may not carry weight in the future. This is a tough nut to crack, and I think the two variances is the hard part. I might propose a continuance, and during that continuance, that we have a meeting with town council and the building inspector in order to get a clarification of technicality so that we can understand, or they can help you make the argument for a variance on 11. I think the pathway for 15, and maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some legalese that have the effect of the hardship of these two different properties, one weighing on the other. Somehow the hardship is combined, and therefore the variance for one then effectively allows a variance for another. We don't do this every day. The variances
I'm glad.
are very few and far between, and usually it's, you know, somebody wants to put an addition and they're gonna put it closer than 10 feet to their neighbor, and they have a rock ledge on one side of the house and it's unbuildable or something like that. Yeah, and it's great that Larry's here from the planning board, because we don't want to be too creative without the legalese and the right thought process to stand behind to get you to the next step, only to find that the next board does. And their purview isn't our purview, and sometimes people make statements about certain things like the police or the fire department or Concom, and we're like, we appreciate it, we understand it, we'll take it under consideration, but they're the authority that governs that. So I'm kind of saying it both ways, but we want to be helpful to you in terms of figuring this out.
Would it make sense to talk to the planning board also about this issue informally?
You could certainly ask to get on our agenda. I have no problem with that. I mean, I'm just one out of 5 members, but I'll tell you what I'd be looking for. Well, I told you what I'd be looking for in terms of an A&R plan.
Yeah.
Sure, if you want to contact Kristen, our town planner, see if you can get on the agenda. Yeah, ultimately be up to the chair, but I don't think you'd have any problem with it.
I think shape, the smaller lot, shape doesn't seem to be an issue. The topography, you could make a stand or an argument for the topography and the fact that the existing house is the only location where you could build a house, and therefore the hardship of the variance in granting actually doesn't create a hardship for 11, and therefore the variance could be granted. Soil conditions, as you said, I don't think anybody can make an argument that it's not like you got upland versus sand dune, and you got something totally different. So I think if there's a way with the surveyor or discussing it with the planning board in terms of topography and somehow the fact that a variance for 11 could be granted, because the hardship is that you can't build anything else on 11 for the size that you're proposing, and so therefore its new nonconformities are acceptable. And I don't know.
That's gonna be a tough one to fly, I think, because he created the nonconformities, the new ones. That's gonna, we'll see, so are you suggesting we make a motion for a continuance while the applicant explores these other options? And
Yeah, I mean, unless we can figure it out fairly soon, because I think we've been around and around and we don't quite have it.
Would it make sense to grant the variances, subject to review with the town council and building inspector?
I think if we think the path is clear, we've done that, or we've said the intent that we would try to draft, and the idea of drafting a favorable decision is that we have that the decision gets made and that the decision is clear and the decision gets voted on, and that we're relaying that we believe we'll get to a favorable decision, so we want to try to draft that, review that, and then we would vote on it. We don't vote on creating a draft, we vote to create a draft, and we tell you it's going to be favorable, and that's usually how the outcome is. But I don't think we want to get ahead of ourselves in doing that, because I don't think we have the language or the argument to state exactly what we're intending here. And again, I think we have it for 15. I don't think we have it for 11. I do think, to me, an argument would be that the topography of 11 with the existing structure is no more detrimental to the PIOD than, again, your neighbors, and the size of the house that could be built on 11 with an existing structure would be no more detrimental. So the hardship is that 11 is what it is, and you couldn't do anything else, and so therefore the revised property lines are acceptable due to topography.
That sounds good.
Okay. So with that, I would propose that we have a motion that continues this. Is there any way to know that this room is available, or there's space available in town and that you guys could make it on January 22nd, Wednesday?
I can't check the room without the network. I can't check on the room without the network.
Was it Wednesday the 22nd?
Wednesday, 22nd, yeah.
Yeah, I think I can do that. Looks good right now.
How do I find it? Is it on the calendar?
can go down and check.
Can you do that for us, please? Wait, I got it. So there's a planning board meeting that's virtual on the 22nd. There's a recreation committee meeting. There's actually an open space committee on the 21st.
We can't just say, should we determine it and do it? No, otherwise that-
Continuance needs to be time, place specific, because everyone who's watching and wants to know has to know that we continue it to a certain time, and it's quite foul if we position it later. We do it on the 29th? There's nothing here on the 29th.
29th of January, where are we here? That's a Wednesday, correct?
I cannot.
Can we do the 30th?
Yes.
Are you available on the 30th of January?
Yes, for me.
I'd like to do it on the 23rd, but I have a feeling I got a business trip out of town, and I'm not gonna make it back.
30th would be preferable for me.
Okay, so, we'll give Chrissy a moment to get back, but what we'd like to have is the continuance to January 30th at 7:30 here at Town Hall. Larry, are you available for the 30th?
Yes.
The planning board has a meeting on the 8th and on the 9th.
The 8th and the 9th. Should be the 8th and the 22nd.
8th and 22nd, what did I just think? Sorry, I'm staring at like different days here, trying to figure out what's up. Okay, so we'll make a motion to keep things, is there a motion for
We
continuing?
need Chrissy for the motion, yeah, be happy.
She'll, we can tell her what she, oh, look at, share here.
Well,
Yeah, so we're gonna do it on Thursday, the 30th.
Would you mind going back and checking?
no,
No, it's open, I'm looking at the calendar here.
Good deal.
I got it up. Magically. So, is there a motion for continuing?
I make a motion for continuance on this hearing until Thursday, January 30th,
7:30.
here in the town meeting room, whatever it's called.
Yep. Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're continued to the 30th.
Okay.
Which sets our next meeting date for the 30th. I'm out of town from the 9th to the 20th as well. If you have that meeting, or if you have the meeting, I would assume you'd try to have the meeting sooner than later. I would say I don't know if there's a conflict if just I show up or one of us just shows up to that meeting if he has a meeting.
I'm sorry, I lost the thread.
So, Mr. Fanetti's gonna talk to the building inspector.
Right, that's where I'd start.
And I'm gonna send an email to town council saying we need some more guidance. Your letter is very clear, but we have this one issue of thought. The applicant needs some guidance. Now, the town council isn't your council. The town council is our council.
Right.
But I will put an email out there to ask if you do have a meeting with the building inspector and one of these two people is available, and you think it's helpful for them to listen in the conversation, you can invite one of them. If you guys have the time. If you guys think being a meeting advances any kind of understanding, you can either, accept or not. But I think I'd be willing to do that if I was here.
Okay.
Because I'd like to get to the bottom of it and get to to know that our questions to town council, our questions to the building inspector, and other people's opinions and how they weigh in helps give us an understanding so that we can move forward one way or the other.
Right.
I'll speak with the planner too, the town planner. I'll speak with Kristen about it.
Great.
Yeah, she meets regularly with town council, so that I can have everything.
Okay, well, I can copy Kristen, Martha, and town council on my email and relay that we're needing some guidance, or we have some indecision, or and we're looking for a little more information from the applicant, and maybe they can shed some light on that.
So I'll start with the building inspector and talk to Kristen.
Yeah, she would be the person if you want to get on the planning board agenda. But see what the building inspector has to say.
Yeah, I'll do that first.
Yeah.
And he can give me some guidance as well, whether it makes sense to go to the planning board or...
And you can take my name in vain too if you want. And if he wants to talk to me, I'm happy.
Well, he would not have a problem talking to you if there were questions that he wanted answered from a member of the board.
I don't think he would, no.
Okay. I'll recommend that he talk to you. Yeah.
I think we're all trying to get to the same place.
Yes.
And with a proper understanding on everybody's side of what's what.
Yes, I mean, it turned, on the surface, it appeared to be a very simple problem to solve. And when I talked to the building inspector, he agreed, and then we had several other discussions, and town council got involved, and it became obvious it was more complicated than initially perceived. I mean, it looked like, well, you just put this to this, and everything makes sense. But obviously, that wasn't
I missed the simple part.
how it worked out.
There's nothing simple on that.
No. Well, board members, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you thinking this through with us.
Yes, thank you.
Good luck with it.
All righty. Jack.
Next up, we have a new public hearing, Tamar Pearlstein and Margaret Wallace. Did I pronounce that correctly? 8 Plumbush Downs. The applicants are requesting a special permit / finding for relief from section 97-4D-5C02, upward extension of the Newbury zoning bylaws, and any other permit relief as may be required under the town of Newbury zoning bylaws to allow the proposed use project in order to construct a second floor on the existing single-family dwelling utilizing the existing foundation and walls on the property located at 8 Plumbush Downs, Plum Island, Newbury, Mass. 01951. This is the assessor's map R51, lot 8.
All right, Jeff, in here.
I display.
You had a display? You never even told me. Well, let's reopen it.
Thank you.
All
Good
righty.
evening.
Good evening.
Or should I say good night?
Sometimes they go really quick. Other times, not so much.
So I'm Tamar Pearlstein, this is Margaret Wallace. We are the owners of the property located at 8 Plumbush Downs. With us, we have Scott Wallace, Margaret's father, just for moral support and help if needed. Again, like we read, we're looking for the upward extension for the relief there. The existing property is a first floor dwelling, so we're looking to add a second floor, really just to make it habitable for us as we grow our family.
Great. All right, so, you're unit number 8, right?
Yes.
And the lot size is 9,954 square feet.
Yes.
All right, so the lot size doesn't change at 9,954 square feet. The lot coverage doesn't change at 15.4 to 15.4. The FAR goes from 8.7 to 23.9. The height goes up to 30 feet. And it doesn't really say, but it looks like it's no more than 14 feet to the mean height of the roof right now. The frontage doesn't change. The bedrooms go from 1 to 2.
Correct.
The front yard is 55 feet. Side A is 18. Side B looks to be about 39. And I'm plus or minus because it's kind of fuzzy on the plan, but and the rear is 57 feet. So you're on Plumbush Downs, you're in the PIOD. Some people in the past, because you're in a condo association, right? Some people have argued the size of the site is the whole condo site, and we've kind of said that that's nice, and we understand that, and that may be a technicality, but when we look at it, we kind of do look at your individual property and compare it, as we've just been discussing about, you know, do you meet the setbacks, do you meet the FAR, do you meet the height, do you meet everything I just read off, and you pretty much do, and you're not changing or exacerbating anything. You've answered questions about bedrooms. I guess you have an unfinished attic.
Yes.
You swear not to think I know better?
Sorry. We have a lot of clothes to store, as you can imagine.
I don't think you're gonna expand your family, you'll have kids stuff. We'll go through pretty quickly. Is it heated attic or is it unheated?
It would be unheated. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, do you have anything more to add, or?
No, I would just say your family, the Wallace family, has been coming to Plum Island for 30 years, and since we started dating, it's really been a special place for us. As crazy as it sounds, as young as we are, this is going to be our forever home, so there's no intention ever to rent it out. It's really our place that we find solace in, and to be able to build a home that we can grow into would really mean the most to us.
Great. Does the board have any questions?
Are you asking for a variance in any way?
Absolutely not.
I'm sorry.
Is the unfinished attic square footage factored into the
FAR?
FAR?
It should be, yes.
Because your FAR seems, your total square footage seems quite a bit larger.
Did you go with that?
Which technically it isn't.
So there are existing decks on either side. The square footage as listed on the FAR checklist, we did include the unfinished attic at 650 square feet. So that brings you to the 2382, which then as a calculation does bring you to the 23.9.
So existing is 866 square feet,
Yeah.
and the proposed is 2,382. That includes the attic.
Oh, I see, it's 650 for the attic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Technically, does not need to be factored in if it's unheated.
It's not palatable.
We weren't sure if it should be factored in, so we did it just to be safe.
Yeah.
Just to be,
Yeah, no,
to be cautious.
you might, maybe don't have to actually factor that in, right?
So, the only thing I'm thinking through is that the PIOD does say 2 floors, you have an unfinished attic. We've had, you know, it's unheated. I think we could just make a stipulation that it's an unfinished, unheated attic. And that's the control point.
Good.
Okay? Is there anybody here that would like to speak against? None. Anybody that'd like to speak in favor?
Me. No, I don't have anything to say.
Are you a resident now?
No.
We've been coming down here for 20 years, my in-laws have a place, but.
You guys want to speak favorably, you already did.
Favorable.
Okay.
They
All
just
right.
wanna go home.
We want to send you guys home.
So we're gonna, I think with that, close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Very good. Is there a motion to, wait, you asked for a
I asked
motion.
for a motion. You can make a motion.
I make a motion to approve the special permit for upward extension for the project at 8 Plum Bush Downs.
Okay, so we're gonna draft a favorable, we will have that decision reviewed with any last public review on the 30th of January. At that time, we will vote to accept that motion, and that motion will say what Jack has, that it's a favorable motion to grant the upward extension, and we will list the items that I listed in terms of what you are changing or not changing as the status for granting that. So is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Aye.
Aye. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you on, you don't have to show up on the 30th, but if you'd like to show up.
Thank you.
I don't think you're fairly straightforward in terms of what you're presenting and what you're doing in terms of reasonableness.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. We have
Thank
that
you.
assignment on the 31st, and then I just have to send
So we
out
make a motion to close the meeting on that.
It's done 20 days, so probably by February 20th. You'll be able to,
Okay,
pick
I
it up and
accepted it.
have ordered,
She seconded it.
file to the deeds, register the deeds, you don't have to drive there, but I'll email you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, last one.
Good luck.
Appreciate your help.
Oh, that was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Happy holidays.
Good night,
And
thank
Merry
you.
Christmas.
The last man standing, you must be Mr. Hartnett.
Poor John.
Very good, very good. Should have done this alphabetical, huh? This is another new public hearing, John Hartnett, 59 Plum Island Turnpike. The applicant was requesting a special permit/finding for relief from sections 97-4D-5C01, increase in square footage, and 02, upward extension of the Newbury zoning bylaws, and any other permit relief as may be required under the town of Newbury zoning bylaws to allow the proposed use project in order to raise the existing building and the construction of a new single-family dwelling with a garage on the property located at 59 Plum Island Turnpike, Newbury, Mass. Assessors map R51, lot 2.
All right. Good.
I'm deaf, so you guys, what I've got
Here, you can come up and sit in the chair and present it.
this is what I've already done the Concom. This is what I propose to build. I'm gonna have I want the garage space, but I don't wanna lose the residential aspect of the existing dwelling. So, I propose to build a 42 by 42 garage.
Yep.
I meet all the setback requirements. Those are my wetland lines.
Yep.
I'm gonna access this garage door from my property right next door, and I live right next door now.
So, 2 lots, separate conditions. You're gonna use this, but you're still gonna have the house above it.
Right,
The size of the lot is 21,160 square feet.
right.
The current size of the,
Building, I got that all written down over here.
oh, it's just lot coverage, I mean, if you guys. There's a deck, and then there's a smaller rectangle here, which is perpendicular to the road. This is rotated to the road. So the lot coverage for the existing is 6.1, and the lot coverage for the new goes to 8.3. The FAR is at 5.2, and the FAR goes to 14.7. The height of the original is 21 feet, and the height of the new is proposed is 25 feet. The frontage is 205 feet, frontage doesn't change. The front setback right now is 31, it'll be reduced to 24. The side A is 44, and will be reduced to 26. The side B is 69, and it will increase to 77. And the rear is 38, and it goes to, where's the rear? This is the rear, so.
Looks like it's still 38, isn't it? No?
Pardon?
Is the rear still 38?
Yes.
Looks
Well,
like
yeah, it was 38 to the deck, and if you draw that, that's funny how it works out like that.
Yeah.
It's 38.
It's still the same, yeah.
So it's saying that's why you didn't write it in, so it's 38 feet. Okay. There's 2 floors. Do you have, what's the bedroom count currently?
2 bedrooms.
And what's the bedroom count?
There's 2 bedrooms now, and there's gonna be 2 bedrooms.
No, it stays the same, good.
Okay. You don't have any attics or unheated space or anything like that?
And this is up, right? Yeah, this is up on file. Yeah, elevation. There's like a line that shows it right.
Kind of on file. Do you have a basement?
The architect did the elevations one way, and the engineer did them another way. The architect took it from the ground level, and the engineer took it from the first floor level of the garage level.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
but again, but you're up on piles, right? Is that-
No,
In the existing or in the new?
In the new.
Are you in a flood
Are
zone?
you in the flood zone?
yeah. I've already been in the Concom.
Do you have,
They've approved the foundation.
Oh, yeah, it says right on here, flood zone elevation.
yeah, and there's ramps to get up into the garage. That's what these.
Right, and there'll be,
Yeah,
there's 3 ramps to get
Yeah.
into the garage.
but does it need, you don't need to be up on piles here?
No. FEMA doesn't require piles.
The first floor just needs to be higher than the flood zone elevation. FEMA, it says right on the side there.
No, I'm gonna put, there'll be flood openings in the walls.
In the walls.
I see, okay, so that's, you're doing an alternative.
Geez, you're right down the street from the last people. You're right down the street from the people that just left.
I know.
Yeah,
Oh, isn't Bob Lobster in here somewhere too?
Oh, don't bring up Bob Lobster.
Whoa. I strike that
They're
statement.
kind of next door to me.
Okay, all right, I just was trying to place it, because I didn't have the plans before.
All right, so the height is to the larger gable ridge, to the mean point of that roof, that is the larger, higher gable ridge, it's slightly higher than the other one.
What am I allowed, 35 feet? 34 feet?
35.
35?
To the median, so.
34, 11, 7/8, but
Yeah.
it's got it, right? We just get suspect when people push up right against it.
I think at my elevation, the mid elevation's gonna be like 25.
That's what he shows
Yeah,
here, yeah?
that's what you have on your table too. Is this on your property, this little outbuilding?
Pardon?
Is this your property?
I can't, let me see.
Sorry, is that your property? Is this little outbuilding?
That outbuilding is going, that's gonna be, that's over here, that's getting demolished.
I see, okay,
That's the shed that's right here.
okay,
My house is over here.
okay.
You go to Plum Island at all?
Yeah, all the time?
I live across the street from the Peck House. This
Okay,
is
yeah,
across
yeah,
the street from the Peck House.
Okay, okay. Yeah, this looks really nice.
Yeah.
This building looks really, you're definitely going to improve it.
Well, it's, you know, if you really want to know what the truth is, I had a permit to do this 10 years ago, and I let it expire.
Yeah.
before they even got into this Plum Island overlay district for this area.
Would've been easier then, easier.
I didn't hear.
You have to jump, don't have to jump through so many hoops, you should've kept it.
Oh, yeah, I know, but my fault.
Okay, so there's only 2 stories here. There's a first floor and a second floor. What else is there?
There should be a floor plan, 2 floor plans. right
Yep.
there.
No, I'm basically restating the points that we're trying to check off here to understand. Yeah, the only, I don't want to use the word tricky, but Graff Architects made this gables just ever so slightly taller, so, and when you go to the midpoint, it's 25 feet, but even if you were up to 35 feet, you're still not 10 feet higher than the second.
Oh, God, no.
I don't have an issue with that, okay. So you're gonna pour a foundation, fill it in, and pour a slab and go up from there? I don't have any more questions.
No, it seems pretty good presentation, and definitely an improvement.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I should have done it 10 years ago, but
Okay.
You gotta admire a guy who puts a garage as his principal thing and then sticks a house on top like an apple. That's pretty good.
well, that's what I want.
Like your wife would decide
I
on
want
that
the
one.
garage. I don't care about, I don't want to lose the,
Yeah, sure.
it's on 2 lots, that's the problem. I mean, I own the one next door, and this one will be as nice as the one next door.
Yeah.
So you'll have a driveway in and out. and
Yeah, that's a driveway
Are
from
you
the,
gonna give yourself an easement, or you're just gonna?
not until I sell it. If I decide to sell this, then I'll write myself an easement at that point. But if I sell this, I'm not gonna I'll just close this off.
Yeah.
So that, I'm not gonna sell it.
Right, but we wanna just make sure, again, we're not setting up something for.
Oh, no, I'm not gonna set you up so that anybody's gonna, if I need to write an easement, I will. But I'm not gonna write an easement because if I sell them as separate properties.
The point is, you don't have to have an easement because you already have a driveway.
Right.
If you didn't have this and you were totally counting on this, then we'd be a little.
And see, I'm eliminating this, this is a driveway now that everybody that goes to Bob Lobster uses as a turnaround. And so I wanna eliminate that.
Well, that explains the plantings then, right?
Yeah.
Very good.
Oh, I have to go do the turnaround before you do this. Okay, I don't have any more questions.
And this is my setback line right here.
Yep.
And,
You got the numbers
yeah,
that are on the low drafted site plan, so I think we're good.
and I mean, the lot's big, definitely big enough.
All right. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the application for upward extension and an increase in the building footprint in an area of the PIOD, as per the applicant's application, as per Mr. Hartman's application.
Okay, that the lot size does not change, that the lot coverage is under the zoning ordinance, that FAR is under the zoning ordinance, and the height is under the zoning ordinance. And the only thing to note on the application is that the rear is 38 feet, which is appropriately actually marked on the site plan. So with that, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we're gonna close the public hearing now,
Yeah,
which is a formality. We will draft a favorable motion. We will have that hopefully reviewed, approved, and ready for voting on the 30th of January.
30th of,
January, our next meeting.
all right, now when can I start digging?
You have an appeals period after that motion of
20 days.
20 days.
How much, 20?
20.
Right, I have to send out a letter to your abutters, so say they sign it the night of the 30th, I send out the letter on the 31st, by February 21st, as long as no appeals are received to the town clerk, you can record it, or Bob can record it, e-file it, and you can, the next day. You just have to pay for the building permit to initiate
Okay.
it and move forward with Peter.
Now, I've got all the receipts for the letters.
I'll take those, I'll put them in your project folder.
Those are the ones that you couldn't deliver.
That's awesome, yep. Thanks, Joe.
Alrighty. John, you can take your plan. And if you like, I'm gonna give you back your plan since I don't really
Okay.
keep it. I want to donate there.
Now, you said the 21st of
February,
February.
yeah.
Okay. Is the end of the appeal period?
Is the end.
Okay.
And I'll let you know that they signed and approved it on the 30th, I'll email you, and then I'll mail your butters, and I'll keep you in the loop, so you can come on the 21st and pick it up.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Alright,
This one,
thanks.
too?
Good
Take
job.
care.
Wait,
You
John.
want this
Hey,
one?
John,
John, you want this one?
take your color plan. Alright, is there a motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion to close the meeting and adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.